great day, Jake. It's going to be perfect. Hey, welcome everybody to Crossbridge Community Church. My name is Brad. I'm the lead pastor. And we are so glad you're here, whether you are here in person or online. And it's going to be a great day today. If you saw on the screen beforehand all those amazing children, I've just been thinking about the last few weeks here, baptizing 15 people and Child Dedication Day and second service. And I think we've got like 5 families or so, dedicated children. And that's what it's all about. That's what you are a part of. That's what you give to. That's what you invest in. And lives being transformed and changed. That's what we're here today, just to celebrate that. So why don't you stand today as we worship this amazing God we serve.
Now I'm laughing. with 1,000 tongues to lift one cry. Then from north to south and east to west, we'd hear Christ be magnified. Were the whole earth echoing his eminence, his name would burst from sea and sky, from rivers to the mountain tops, we'd hear Christ be magnified. Oh, Christ be magnified. Let his praise arise. Christ be magnified in me. Oh, Christ be magnified from the altar of my life. Christ be magnified in me. When every creature finds its inmost melody, and every human heart its native cry, oh, then in one enraptured hymn of praise we'll sing, Christ be magnified. Oh, be lifted high. Oh, Christ be magnified. Let his praise arise. Christ be magnified in me. Oh, Christ be magnified from the altar of my life. Christ be magnified in me. I won't bow to idols. I'll stand strong and worship you. And if it puts me in the fire, I'll rejoice 'cause you're there too. I won't be formed by feelings. I hold fast to what is true. If the cross brings transformation, I'll be crucified with you. 'Cause death is just the doorway to resurrection life. And if I join you in your suffering, then I'll join you when you rise. And when you return in glory with all the angels and the saints, my heart will still be singing, my song will be the same. Oh, darkest day in history. There on a cross they made for sinners. For every curse his blood atoned. One final breath and it was finished. But not the end we could have known. For the earth began to shake, and the veil was torn. What sacrifice was made as the heavens roared? All hail King Jesus. All hail the Lord of heaven and earth. All hail King Jesus. All hail the Savior of the world. There was a moment when the sky lit up, a flash of light breaking through. When all was lost, he crossed eternity. The King of life was on the move. For in a dark, cold tomb, where our Lord was laid, one miraculous breath, and we're forever changed. All hail King Jesus. All hail the Lord of heaven and earth. All hail King Jesus. All hail the Savior of the world. All hail King Jesus. All hail the Lord of heaven and earth. All hail King Jesus. All hail the Savior of the world. Let every knee bow before the King of Kings. Let every tongue confess that He is Lord. Lift up your shout. Let us join with all of heaven singing, holy, singing, holy. We'll cry out, holy. We're singing, holy. All hail King Jesus. All hail the Lord of heaven and earth. All hail King Jesus. All hail the Savior of the world. God, we cry out to you this morning. We praise you. We worship you in this moment today. Recognizing what you've done for us. Your blood taken on the cross for each one of us. to account for our sins and what we've done. So we praise you through that, God. We praise you in this place as a body of believers. And we invite you into this moment while we dig into your word and learn and grow closer to you, God. We thank you for all the many blessings you've given us. We praise you and worship you in your name. Amen. You guys can go ahead and have a seat.
A big part that played into me wanting to go to church when I was little was when I could see my grandmother. And so a lot of my memories with her are from those Sundays while I was growing up. I'm pretty sure the Sunday after I was born, I was at church. I was a swimmer in 6th grade, so that was majority of my life. I swam starting in 3rd grade all the way to the end of my 8th grade year. I was contemplating switching to show choir, and that was one of the hardest decisions I've ever made in my entire life because swimming was such a big aspect of who I was. It taught me so much. If somebody asked me what my main goal of swimming, my dream was, it wasn't even to go to the Olympics because I knew I wasn't that good and I never would be that good. But I just wanted to swim at IU. That just kind of set off a whole year of confusion about who I was and what I wanted to do. That, I guess there was a little bit of questioning there about God. I was just why would he make me feel this way? I've already swam this long. I was confused. I was what is going on? But I really had to rely on God through those, through that year. I started show choir and I fell in love with it. I knew, I was oh yes, I made the right decision. Junior year was by far the worst year of my entire life. It was so bad. I was taking really hard courses. I found myself with just at least 2 to 3 hours worth of work that I needed to do every single night after practice, and then just breaking down in tears because of all the stuff I had to do. I would go home and find myself stress eating bars of cookie dough. Anxiety was constantly making me feel I needed to keep moving farther and farther in advance, especially with my schoolwork. I remember getting a B on an anatomy test. I instantly got out my phone and texted my mom, and I was we need to order this textbook so I can read the whole chapter for the next test. I'm sure my math textbook was I bet you the pages were wrinkly from just me crying on them, because if I just didn't understand one thing, I was well, I'm not gonna understand it for the quiz, which is then gonna mess up my grade for the test, and the test's gonna mess up my grade for the GPA, and then I'm not gonna get in the top 10% of my class. And so it just constantly just kept going forward and forward. And I was when is this gonna end? There was an anatomy quiz that my teacher didn't teach half this stuff, and it made me so upset that I literally out loud argued with him about it. And I did get the grade a whole 1.5 points back on that quiz, but that's to the extent that I would go to make sure my GPA wasn't ruined. It was definitely just pressure put on to myself. I felt that I needed to get all these good grades so I could get into this college, when it's weird because deep down I knew it's all gonna be fine. I'm gonna get into college. It's not that big of a deal. But still, up here, I was just you gotta keep going. You gotta get A's on absolutely everything. And so that really ruined a lot of my junior year for me. And then September that year, that's when Trinity passed away. And a lot, everything just changed for me there. It was definitely one of the hardest things I've ever gone through. Just knowing that it really could be anyone, and it changed my perspective a lot in the fact that you don't know if there's gonna be a tomorrow. And then May, that's when my grandmother died unexpectedly, and then that was absolutely devastating to me. She's a big reason as to why my faith is as strong as it is today, and so that was really hard on me. And that transferred over into the summer going into my senior year, so that anxiety just ramped up again. And I felt I needed to continue moving forward, but part of me felt I was still there. So still stuck in junior year. For a lot of people, when they struggle with like that type of anxiety, they would say that they struggled with doubting and all of that, but I really didn't. I thought it was kind of weird. I was like, I feel like now would be the time where I would be like having all of these doubts and stuff, but I wasn't. And I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. I really trusted God in everything, and I think that if I didn't, I really would have struggled 10 times more than I did. So I am really lucky that I did grow up like going to church. I knew deep down that I was gonna be okay. I'd say that if I didn't have that kind of faith from like my childhood all the way up till now, I feel like I would be lost, especially with going through all of the anxiety that I had. My favorite verse is 1 Corinthians 16:14, and that's let all that you do be done in love. That has definitely helped me a lot because I do that for other people, and then I can also do that for myself. I feel like that is my purpose, is to just, it doesn't matter where I am, I need to just let everything I do be done in love. Yeah.
Well, good morning, everyone. That was my friend Maddie. She is a freshman now at IU. Her sister's at Purdue. I was going to get that wrong, but I didn't, I don't think. She's a freshman at IU, and she sat down with me this summer to just share her story, and I'm really grateful that she did. And so we'll talk more about her story here in a second, but if we have not gotten the chance to meet, my name is Trevor, and I'm the youth pastor here. And this week I passed a pretty big milestone that I was really excited about. So I've spent 13 years here on staff as the youth pastor, which, thank you. I kind of missed the middle of the stage, though, in the dark. I'm going to move over, sorry. But I was going through a bunch of pictures, kind of just reflecting on my time here. And there's one picture I found that's really become my favorite picture over my time here. And I apologize, it's really blurry and really terrible because that's the best picture we took. I don't know why. This is from 2015. It is my ordination ceremony when I got ordained. And the reason it's become my favorite picture is because there's a whole lot going on in this picture. But it was really the moment where I realized just how fortunate and blessed I really was here. I know a lot of youth pastors who are kind of expected to fit a certain mold or to act a certain way or to be a certain way. But for 13 years, I've been allowed to just be myself here. And so in this picture, I had green hair because I like to dye my hair. So I emailed the state office and I was like, is it okay if I show up with dyed hair? And they're like, yeah, why wouldn't it be? And I was like, okay, well, this is kind of like a little bit of a dressed up occasion. And so then I showed up, I had dress pants on. This is gonna make Courtney very sad. Courtney was actually really mad at me for this. I had dress pants on, but I was wearing green shoes, similar to what I'm wearing today. You can see I have a green, I'm pretty sure it was short sleeve shirt on. And I showed up, I had to be there 2 hours early, and I was like, hey, it's okay, I'll go change. And she's like, the lady signing the paper, she's like, why would you change? That's just who you are. And I was like, huh. And so Courtney showed up, and she starts yelling at me. She's like, why are those shoes on? Why is your shirt on? I'm like, hey, they said it was fine, and I'm getting ordained with green shoes, green hair, and a green shirt, none of which matched. It was fine. And then to top it off, obviously, you may recognize some people in that picture. This stuff's really old now, but people came down and sprayed their hair green to just kind of celebrate. And so I just want to stand up here today and just say thank you for letting me be me, for accepting me. And, I never thought I'd be at a place that actually just kind of fully let me be me. And even to the point now where I wear really stupid stuff and the teens are like, no, that's just your style. It's fine. I'm like, all right, that's cool. I guess we've gotten there. And so just thank you guys for an awesome, 13 years together. And so that's not a resignation speech. I just wanted to say thank you. Just to be clear. And so back to my friend Maddie. So I really like her video, and I like the stuff that she shared. And there was something that kind of hit me, and we're wrapping up this series, kind of about family, relationships, different things. I forgot the name again. It's fine. Bullseye. I told him, I was like, I got to remember the name, and I didn't. Should have written it down. But wrapping up our series, Bullseye, talking about these different things, and in Maddie's story, the one thing that I really, really love is she kind of paints this picture that what is modeled by her grandma, and she doesn't mention it, but I know her family, is really what stuck with her. And seeing the idea, she made the joke at the very beginning, like I was probably in church the week after I was born, and it's like what she knew and what she saw modeled, and when everything breaks down, what she turned to. And it got me thinking about this idea of family, and this idea of what are the things that I remember. I'm 35 now, so I'm a little bit removed from living with my parents. But what are the things I remember that they taught me growing up? And as I was thinking, I really don't remember, this is going to sound really terrible, I'm sorry, but I really don't remember hardly anything that they told me, like actual words they said. I remember a lot of being yelled at for lack of effort as a student, which never changed, and I'm sorry. I was a bad student. I remember a lot of conversations about driving, but it took 6 tickets for me to become a better driver, so I didn't necessarily listen there. But there were a couple things that my family modeled that have changed the way I live and changed the way I see the world, and I want to share just 2 stories here real quick. The first one happened, I believe, when I was in middle school. I really don't even remember all of the specific details of it. But I can still remember this moment to this day, and it's changed the way that I live and the way that I think. My dad was a high school teacher. He may have been an assistant principal at the time. My mom stayed at home, worked part-time, so we weren't super well off. We weren't poor by any means. But I remember my dad took me with him one time to, I remember where it was too. It was the Firestone in the mall parking lot, the tire store there. My dad took me to this place, and we met one of his either current students or former students there who was moving out of town. And she had to drive several hours away, but the tires on her car were just really, really bad. And so we showed up to the store, and I don't know how she even knew to contact my dad, but she contacts my dad shows up, he takes me with him, and he buys new tires for her car. And I remember her, being really, really thankful and saying, yeah, I'll pay you back. And she leaves, and my dad just looks at me, and he's like, we're never going to see her again. We won't get the money back, but that's just the right thing to do. So I guess those are words that he said. But it just hit me in that moment, and that, this is what generosity looks like. This is just how you live, and it's a state of the way that you think, the way that you see things. And since that moment, it's changed the way that I view money. It's changed the way that I view people. And just the simple thing that my dad, I don't even think meant to take me on as an example. I was probably just with him. And watching him do that has changed, like I said, the rest of my life, the way that I view people and money. And the second story I want to share is kind of 2 stories that go together. But when I was a freshman in high school, this is going to, I'm promoting video games here, I'm sorry. There's a video game that came out that changed the world forever called Halo. For the first time ever, you could take consoles and plug them together, and you could play with up to 16 people in the same game. And this was so revolutionary. It used to be limited to 4 people, 1 screen, 1 TV. And so I remember going to my parents and talking to them, and I was like, this is the craziest thing. I went to someone's house, and I saw them playing in different rooms. I was like, this is the craziest thing I've ever seen. And so I go home to my parents, and I talk to them, and they're like, okay, well, tell us more about it. And so my parents ended up buying me Ethernet cables and a router that we didn't even know what they were. We went on eBay and found some. And for the next 3 years of high school, almost, I would say 50% of the Friday nights, there were 15 to 25 people at my house playing Halo. And my parents would just give us snacks, let people come over, just provided a safe space for us to live, for us to be. Which then translated to, we had a bunch of people coming to our church that didn't necessarily come with their families, a lot of teenagers, probably from all the Halo we played, and they didn't know any better. And my parents ended up inviting just like everyone who wanted to come over on Sundays to our house, and they would cook for us. And it started off as one whole chicken, then became two whole chickens, then three whole chickens. We started off with our dining room table, which then turned into our a folding table, which then turned into a board between the two tables. I think at the peak we had 17 teenagers coming over on Sundays to our house after church, and it was just, it's what I grew up knowing, and that's all I know. And so I've had a lot of people ask, like, why are you okay just having people over at your house all the time? And I'm like, that's all I know. It's what was modeled for me growing up. It's why Courtney and I guess Courtney saw it modeled differently, but she didn't play Halo every Friday night, I don't think. But it's why I live the way that I live. It's why I see things the way that I do. It's why I see the world the way I am. And I'm very thankful because I am very extroverted. I love being around people. And my parents let us have a safe space to hang out. And I know we probably caused a lot of sleepless nights for them because people would leave at 4 a.m. But that's changed the way that I live. The things that my parents did, the way they modeled. And as we kind of wrap up the series, I want us to really just think about one question. And this is for you, as a family, but it's also just you with the people in your life, the people at your work, the people at your schools. So often we do a lot of talking about what we want people to know or to learn or to pay attention to. And I'm sure you're like me, you've heard a lot of things in your life, and how many of them do you really remember? There's a few that stick with us, but for the most part, what we remember are the things that we see modeled, the things that we see lived out by the people that we respect. And it hit me this week, like the most obvious thing. This is kind of what happens. But it hit me this week that I realized that's what Jesus did. I couldn't think of a single thing that Jesus said, that Jesus taught, that he wasn't also living out and modeling. Jesus perfectly represents the lessons that he teaches. And then I started wondering, I'm like, would the lessons of Jesus have been as significant if Jesus wasn't also living them out, wasn't also modeling them, wasn't also being that person every hour of every day, as far as we know? I believe that's why his disciples were so devoted, why the crowds were so committed to him. Because the things he taught, often he was teaching to explain why he was doing what he was doing. And that's who Jesus was. And so I have a few examples. We're going to go through them. Matthew 6:19 through 21 says this, best we can tell, that's my thought, sorry. Let's try the other one. Don't store up treasures here on earth where moths eat them and rust destroys them, and where thieves break in and steal. Store your treasures in heaven where moths and rust cannot destroy, and thieves do not break in and steal. Wherever your treasure is, there the desires of your heart will also be. This is a famous verse, right? Talking about how we should be storing up our value in the things that we desire in heaven, in the eternal life, and not so much looking to acquire possessions and wealth in this world because it fades away, it doesn't matter. Best we can tell, Jesus really didn't own any worldly possessions, right? He seemed to kind of go place to place. Their culture expected them to kind of house people when they came into town. We know that the crowds tried to get him to, become king, to take all these things. And Jesus says, like, those aren't the things that matter. What matters to me is storing up eternity in heaven, my relationship with God. Those are the things he taught and modeled. The next one, Matthew 20:25 through 28, Jesus says, Jesus called them together and said, you know the rulers in this world lord it over their people, and officials flaunt their authority over those under them. But among you it will be different. Whoever wants to be a leader among you must be your servant. Whoever wants to be first among you must become your slave. For even the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve others and to give his life as a ransom for many. It's a very, very radical thing that Jesus is saying here, because he's essentially calling out kings and governors and officials. And he's saying that those people abuse their power, and they use their power to put themselves ahead, to oppress people, to elevate themselves. It's what they would have seen modeled, if you know anything about Roman history and the way the the Caesar acted, even the local governors of the area, and really you still see it today, how many leaders are abusing power. And Jesus says, if you want to be a leader, if you want to truly lead the way I expect, then you will serve. And he flips this whole idea of leadership upside down. And we know that Jesus washes the disciples' feet, right? We know he serves them, he loves them, he serves the least of people that he meets in the community. Jesus is constantly looking to give and not take, which is radically different than any leadership model would have ever been in that culture. And like I said, still radical today. And we now have books, right? Servant leadership written off of this concept that Jesus taught. Luke 5:16 just simply says this: Jesus often withdrew to the wilderness for prayer. Jesus talked about the power of prayer. One of the 10 commandments, right? Remember the Sabbath and keep it holy, which I believe is about this idea of rest. And I think we see Jesus model these things because he would consistently withdraw to the wilderness for prayer. He knew the power of prayer, the importance of prayer, the significance of prayer, which is something we talk about in the church, but not necessarily always live out. And the idea of rest, the idea of Jesus withdrawing from the crowds because he knew he needed to recover, to rejuvenate. And Jesus models these ideas here, two things that are taught throughout the whole Bible. And then the last one, obviously kind of the most significant, 2 verses here, Matthew 5:44. I say, love your enemies, pray for those who persecute you. John 15:13, there is no greater love than to lay down one's life for one's friend. I don't know that any of us can say things like this, but Jesus can because he did it, right? Jesus went to the cross because he laid down his life for the people he cared about. Jesus, while on the cross, prays for the people who put him on the cross. And he still dies for the people who put him on the cross. See, Jesus said a lot of things, but more significantly than what he said is the way that he lived out and perfectly modeled the things that he wanted us to understand. He perfectly models love and serving and grace. Interestingly enough, I also think he perfectly models rest and having healthy habits. And so I ask us to think about whether you are a parent, an aunt, a student, a volunteer, all of us are modeling things to the people around us. Whether intentionally or accidentally, we are modeling the things that we value, that we care about. We are teaching lessons through our actions. And so the question for us is, what are we modeling? What are we teaching? What are we being an example of? If we're working all the time, it's modeling something. If we create a really, really busy lifestyle, it's modeling something. If we're obsessed with sports, constant discussions about needing more, chasing bigger things, even stressing about grades, getting too heated in arguments. All this is modeling something and showing something. And that doesn't mean we are perfect, right? We are obviously not Jesus. We are not going to be the perfect model all the time. But I think a lot of us think that we're good at like hiding things, or we're good at things not being noticed. Like I can say this, but like do this, and no one will notice that I'm contradicting. But I think people notice more than we think. And if the things that we want people to learn and to pick up are love, generosity, integrity, rest, trust, peace, joy, I think those are the things that we need to be modeling with our actions. If we want people to know and learn what generosity is, we have to model it. If we want people to know what honesty and integrity is, we have to model it. Helping the needy, loving people. And I can tell you, like, my parents, I tell that tire story. My parents tried in other ways to model generosity and serving too, but none of them ever clicked for me. I remember my dad would sign me up for like helping at church and like serving, and I was like, we had like various events, and I was like, I hated this. I hated every second of it, and I was like, this is the stupidest thing. Like, why do we help people? Like, this sucks. And for whatever reason, it was the one moment at the tire store that it clicked, and so. I think that's even another lesson that we have to realize, right? That it isn't going to be modeled in the moment that we want it to, right? It's probably modeled in the moments that we aren't even thinking about it. There's one verse I want to close with here in Colossians. And it very simply just says this. Let the message about Christ in all its richness fill your lives. Teach and counsel each other with all the wisdom he gives. Sing psalms and hymns and spiritual songs to God with thankful hearts. And whatever you do or say, do it as a representative of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks through him to God the Father. I think if we want our family, our friends to know God, we want our family and friends to know peace, to know generosity, to know love, that's what we need to model. I don't think it's going to be the rules or the things that we say. It's going to be the actions we live out that will affect the people in our lives. Let me pray for us. God, I just ask that that you would give us all the strength, that you would give us the ability to live out the things that we want to live out, God, to model the things we want to model, to not be consumed and distracted by culture, the busyness, the things around us, God, that we can be consistent examples, reflections of who you are. Amen.
Thank you, Trevor. You know, as Trevor's up here talking about how thankful he is for us letting him be himself, I don't know if you know how fortunate we are as a church to have someone, especially a youth pastor. It's unheard of for a youth pastor to be at a church for 13 years. It just doesn't happen. And to watch he and Courtney and their team just work with teens over the past 13 years has been absolutely astounding and amazing what they've done and how they've built into these kids. And we've watched some of them go into full-time ministry. We watched some of these students come back and want to serve again. And they've built this atmosphere where they can ask the tough questions, where they can come alongside each other and they can be themselves also and learn about this amazing God that they can serve. And it's just been amazing to watch these kids grow and be challenged and learn to love Jesus, and they have given their lives to that. And we are so fortunate as a church to have that. And I hope you realize that. And if you have young kids, you know, we have a baby dedication coming up, a child dedication. That is the story throughout everything that we do here, through children, through youth, through teens. It's been incredible, and we have been amazingly blessed. So thank you, Trevor, and thank you, Courtney, for all of that. And man, we are honored to have you here. And what a great challenge for us as adults. As I was sitting back there, Barb and I were sitting back there talking about and thinking about, you know, what did we model? And we didn't get it right. You know, hopefully we got some of it right, but man, what a chance you have if your children are young, you have teens, to start modeling, to understanding that our Christ-centeredness, us living our lives through the lens of everything through Jesus. Every decision we make, everything that we do, centers around this Jesus. Are we following? Are we looking more and more like Jesus? If we do that, our kids are going to catch that. So thank you for that challenge, Trevor. This actually leads into a great series we're going to start next week. I get the privilege to kick off this series. It's called The Curse of Comfort, and we have been looking forward to this all year long. We knew we were going to do this series, so I would challenge you. You know, we've got, 3 months or so left in the rest of the year. We've got some really cool stuff happening in the series we're producing and things, and with Christmas coming up, and man, it's going to be an amazing time. So I just challenge you to engage all you possibly can. Be here for each other. In living in community, and I'm telling you, I think God's going to challenge us as individuals and as a church over the next few months. So thanks so much for being here. We'll see you next week as we kick off The Curse of Comfort.